And welcome to the Marketecture Podcast. This is Ari Paparo. I'm here with Eric Franchi, and our guest today we're very excited about, Jim Payne, a person who've been trying to get on the show, who've mentioned on the show probably 10 times. And he's got a new startup called CloudX that is in the mobile space, but has a privacy angle and also has a big AI angle. There's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Eric, have you worked with Jim in the past?
I have not, no. But I've met him. I've hung out with him. He is extremely smart. He has as many stories as anybody in terms of just like legends of. So hopefully we'll have some time to get into it. But for those who are not familiar, Jim is the founder of MoPub, which was acquired by Twitter. Jim's the founder of Max, which was acquired by AppLovin. So one of the best founders in ad tech, and one that I don't think gets enough credit or conversation. So I'm excited about having him on today.
Yeah, me too. And then the breaking news as we're recording this is about Pinterest acquiring tvScientific. So we'll have a full breakdown of that and our hot takes and Eric's gloating as an investor in that. It'll all be good.
Shout out to Jason Fairchild.
Yeah, Jason Fairchild, former guest on the show. So this week we announced the Marketecture Live speaker list, or at least the first tranche of it. We are having a big event, if you haven't heard, on March 10th and 11th. It's 2 days, 1,000 people. You should really buy tickets now if you haven't already. Early bird is ending in January. Partial list of speakers, including Eric and I, of course, but obviously you hear from us enough. We have Sophia Colucci, who's the CMO of Molson Coors, Neil Vogel, who's the CEO at People, Joanna O'Connell, who's always an amazing speaker from Omnicom Media Group, Jeremiah Owang, who's a visionary expert in AI, and throwing you a little curveball here, Lance Armstrong, who I think goes without introduction. And Eric, you had an opportunity to bicycle with recently, but it didn't work out. Is that the story as I remember it?
No comment on the bicycling, but I had a chance to meet Lance. He is obviously a legend, but he's an awesome investor as well. He's an investor in Branch Lab, one of our portfolio companies, an ad tech company, and he's extremely thoughtful around data and the use cases. So I think it's going to be an awesome conversation with him. I can't wait to see him on stage.
Yeah, me neither. So that's just the first tranche. We're going to be announcing a lot more speakers over the next month or so. As a reminder, you should really buy your early bird tickets if you don't have them. It's, I think, until early January at marketecturelive.com. With that, let's jump into the conversation with Jim.
Let's go.
Jim Payne, thanks for joining us. We're really excited to talk.
Ari, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So you're one of my white whale guests. I've been trying to get on for like over a year. I mean, I don't put a lot of effort into this podcast. So when I actually try to get somebody on the pod, it means I really want you.
Well, it means a lot. I know I've been evasive for a
little evasive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I told you.
Why
I think
have you
I
been
told
evasive,
you.
Jim?
No, it's not evasive. It's just we wanted to have the ability to talk about what we've been working on. So, I didn't want to be mysterious on a podcast. I want people to tell you guys exactly what we're up to.
Yeah, so Jim has been mysterious in person. Like I would see him at Cannes. I'd be like, "We got to have you on the podcast," and then he'd say something like, "Yeah, we got some really cool stuff coming up. I'll be on as soon as the stuff is announced." And that's been going on for like a year.
Well, it's you know how it is, Ari. I mean, you've done a number of companies. Like you don't really know which direction it's going to take. So I didn't want anything to be on the record that would be like, hey, we didn't do that at all, or that was a bad idea, and we went down a different path.
Sure. So your background is like kind of amazing, especially in regards to the mobile app space. Founder of MoPub, founder of Max, or co-founder of Max. I'm not sure how you, or investor in Max, buyer seller of MetaMarkets. Which we covered in depth on a previous podcast.
Yeah, that's right. But although I wasn't on that one, that was just Mike's
you
version.
weren't. Yeah. So that's one for the archives when Mike Driscoll came in and told us all about that. Do you still own a piece of? Are you an investor in Real, which is now the owner of MetaMarkets?
Yes, I'm an investor in Real. Probably smaller than I would like to be. But we basically, bifurcated the company, and one half went to Snap, back to Snap, actually. And then the other half became what Mike's doing with Real. And obviously, Mike and I go way back. MoPub was the biggest customer of MetaMarkets, as you know, and we kind of put it into every single aspect of the product. So I'm an investor in Real, but we're also a customer of Real too with CloudX.
Oh, great. So the reason we actually were able to get you on the show is because you finally announced something. So the the mystery is over. The clouds have lifted. CloudX.
Correct. And I'm sure that you could have guessed what we were going to do.
Really surprised me. It's an SDK for app monetization. How could that have ever come to you as an idea?
Exactly. I don't know, but it actually was started by a tweet where you said, let's vibe code.
That tweet seemed to have started a lot of businesses.
That's right. I said I probably could vibe code an SSP. In fact, let's go try and do that. And it turns out you can get a lot done with vibe coding and a great team.
So how much did you vibe code? Like, did you
really
actually?
No, I didn't. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. No, we were well underway, but we were, the one of the things we wanted to announce last month, and the formal announcement was not just the financing and not just the early team and what the product is going to be, but we obviously have an important partnership with Meta, and that took some time to do. So we had been when I ran into you at Possible, and we had that tweet exchange. We were in the early design phase of, is there something that could be done to help Meta be successful or more successful in their third party business? So that's kind of why it was relevant on top of mind for me.
So Meta obviously buys third-party inventory in-app through their FAN. They don't buy any web or desktop anymore. So what are their concerns? Why can't they be more successful? I thought we had a real-time open auction because of all of the work you did at Max and Google's work, et cetera.
That's true, and so that's why there's plenty of third-party activity in Max and other SSPs. In mobile. But what Meta really wanted to be able to do was work more directly with publishers that make sense for their demand expression and make sense for their creatives. And so how do you actually arrange those kind of bilateral agreements? It's actually really hard to do that today in mobile. So one of the things that we wanted to do with CloudX was facilitate that kind of transaction to happen, have it be informed by data and priced properly. And then importantly, we created this notion of a secure auction so that there's no data leakage that could, potentially be misused. Not to say that that's something that actually happens, but it's something that certainly Meta needs to be comfortable about.
Yeah, sure. So we didn't let you kind of give your elevator pitch to start, but I'm going to start by reading. I think that the like 2-sentence announcement is pretty interesting. So I'm going to read it, then I'll let you comment on it. Which is CloudX's monetization as code approach offers rich options for advanced publishers, line items to create multiple auction scenarios, and per request price floors, real time analytics, log level access. Blah, 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 blah. So that's pretty interesting. I've never heard monetization as code. What does that all mean?
Well, we came up with it. The idea was basically earlier in the spring, vibe coding SSP sounds cute, but ultimately, like what we wanted to provide was the ability for people to vibe code their monetization stack, actually. So that's where monetization as code comes from. It's this notion that let's make software tools and a marketplace with liquidity in it that can be operated by a tool like Claude. So how do we make it such that a admon person who's sitting at a mobile publisher who wants to do all these different deals and figure out, how to actually optimally allocate their inventory? And there's a number of challenges that we can talk about, more specifics, like why you'd want to do that. But how do you actually make that work in practice? The first thing we kind of came up with was this notion of let's have everything in the admon stack be a file that Claude could go into and create line items, create targeting, create bundles of geographies, and then you can refer to those things. And then you get basically all of the infrastructure of source code control, GitHub, version history, diffs, branching, merging, automatic deployments onto your actual production stack. You kind of get all that infrastructure for free. And if people are technical, then they understand how to actually navigate all that too. So monetization as code is kind of the core first-class design decision that we made at the beginning of the product that unlocks a lot of the workflow optimization and the AI enablement that we're doing.
That's fascinating. So, let's do a real business example. You said that we're talking about a publisher's perspective, an app publisher in this case. The app publisher, what business problem might they solve? Like Meta comes knocking and says, give us more inventory for a higher price. Is that kind of a scenario you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a scenario for sure. But why would somebody want to do that? Right? Because you're kind of getting an optimal, at least spot price in an auction scenario. So you might want to do that because, well, my user base is not a heterogeneous user base. Or sorry, it is a heterogeneous user base in the sense that you've got long-term users who stick around, and then you've got people who churn out rapidly. So the people who are long-term users who stick around, well, I probably want to monetize them with ads differently. If I can tell that they're going to be or turn into a long-term user, the LTV calculation is different. And right now, you don't, as a mobile publisher, you don't really have the ability to say, I only want to run meta creative that is, 6 seconds, like a reel style creative for those very, very high value users, and then let the rest of it be monetized more aggressively in a kind of a typical way that a mobile advertising stack operates. So a publisher might want to do that. They don't really have the platform or tool to do that, even for that one case. But if you actually imagine the complexity of a multi-studio publisher with dozens of variations of Sudoku that they've acquired through the years, completely different tech stack. One's an iOS, native app. One's Unity. One's going to be like Flutter, the implementation of it. You got iOS and Android. You've got all these different versions out in the wild to make all the line items to do that simple thing that I was just talking about and actually monitor what's working and making sure that those line item IDs match with the right thing and that they're getting picked up by Meta and we're actually bidding on them properly and the creatives are rendering. It's actually a Herculean task. And that's what Claude Code and our chat LLM implementation can actually do for you almost automatically.
So most of the ad tech world, broadly speaking, is implementing AI and MCP as a way to automate legacy workflow. Like, you have a workflow where I create a line item, I update, I do blah, 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 blah. And now we have a little chat bot that says, update all my line items at once. It seems like you've skipped that first step and you're just straight on the command line.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's people in our world are more comfortable with native integrations because that's kind of how you have to do it. So, and that's another big piece of work that desktop folks don't think about or care how hard it is. But one of the reasons why the mobile advertising business is completely different in its implementation ultimately than desktop is because the SDKs are so hard to actually work with and install and do. So, we've got the command line that can do your line item and workflow optimization and ad ops, and that's all well and good, server side stuff. Everybody's happy with that. But we also have the same thing for the client side SDK implementation. So we've got an agent that can put the SDK into the app, create the line items and IDs in the right place in the SDK, whether it's a native iOS or Android or Unity, like I was saying, and then make sure those are created in the server and everything actually maps to each other. And you've got all these other networks that also have placement IDs. And there's just a tremendous amount of work that you've got to make sure is exactly right. And any little problem is a lost revenue opportunity. And
I mean, the way this is done traditionally is with a spreadsheet. It's like I have a sheet that says, here's all my line items and here's my segments from the CDP. Like you mentioned, like long-term value, those will be expressed as like a low value segment probably. And so in your world, as I'm imagining it, I haven't seen the actual product here. You're telling Claude, for the low value segments from our CDP and the corresponding line items, change the floor price or whatever has to be done.
Yeah, have it be a more aggressive set of auction participants. And we're going to basically ring fence some inventory that we're going to charge a premium for that Meta and other bidders can take away from the open auction, and there's a commercial arrangement that'll facilitates that. But one of the things that I think is, you're probably going to ask me about this, but the thing about mobile is like a lot of this stuff has just not happened, right? A lot of the things that you guys typically do in desktop that you're accustomed to doing that everyone does.
All right, so you seem to be disparaging me and Eric as desktop guys. No, I'm a broad advertising guy, and Eric hasn't seen a desktop in years.
I think it's a compliment because basically, MoPub and MAX were both inspired by what was happening on desktop, and I just basically brought those things to mobile. So I don't know what I would be doing without you guys, frankly. Just keep coming up with great ideas and I'll bring them over.
Tell us about the trusted execution environment, the TEE idea. This has been floating around a lot as related to like the sandbox and the cookie environments, but now you're bringing it to the SDK. What does that mean?
Sure. Yeah. So it's the importance of that idea is basically how does a bidder like Meta, who's expressing some economic value to an impression, ensure that they're not leaking some signal inadvertently to be either other participants in the auction or to publishers who can then use that information to make a bidding model and then disintermediate them. So what we're doing with that trust execution environment is basically making a set of guarantees about how the data is used coming into the auction, how the auction actually runs, and then what comes out, what can emerge. And that makes it easier for us to share more granular data with our publishers, which is part of the value proposition and positioning of the overall CloudX tool, is that publishers are going to be able to get all this information and then make their own models and LTV optimization calculations and do all that kind of stuff. How do you do that if there's extreme signal leakage, like you'd have nobody basically bidding in the marketplace? So that was an important guarantee that we can make as a platform to allow and facilitate a lot of that stuff to happen.
Yeah. So I haven't looked into this issue technically, but the unified auction from, let's say, Max, which is owned by AppLovin, the signals are all secure within that environment, right? The bid is encrypted and the creatives are encrypted. You probably know who wins, but you don't know the bids. So why is that not sufficient?
Well, it's perfectly sufficient. It's a huge business and it powers, most of the mobile advertising today. So I think there is certainly sufficient for many purposes. But if Meta wants to have more a comfort level with more granular information being shared to publishers, and, we're not as large and we're not as established, and, they may say, what happens to our bid? Are you really actually cleansing this stuff? Can you demonstrate that to me? As a new player and as a player who's trying to enable publishers to do more, we have to make some, I think, additional guarantees. And so that's where the secure auction environment came from. We developed it in close partnership with them, actually. And, essentially it is a GitHub repository with our auction code in it. And if you run an auction on our platform, you get some verification tickets that we can provably demonstrate to you that it used that code to run that auction.
Right. And the value is that that the auction is fair.
The auction's fair. You know exactly what's happening in the auction. And then there's also, I think, an important piece is that what comes out of the auction, if you bid and you lose, that bid's not sitting around on some server that we can go use in a model.
Right.
So that's an important guarantee that we make in that auction as well.
Do publishers maybe it's a dumb question, but do publishers prefer to only have one auction in their apps? Because with the idea of universal auction and the move away from mediation, it makes sense you would only have a single SDK doing all the auctioning.
It's certainly, I think it's a nice idea, but it's just not really practical.
Yeah, sure.
I think
so.
It's
What do they
not
do?
Really practical.
What do they do?
Well, so most people have a pretty diverse stack, and you might actually even recall that it's typically not like one website or one big app that these guys may have. So they're operating multiple studios in a decentralized model, and those studios run their own gaming, cadence, and they ship their own stuff, and they ship on all these different versions of mobile operating systems, and they have various properties acquired and amassed over the years. So even if you wanted to have a single unified platform that does all of that for every single property you have, it's actually quite hard to make one platform work for all those different cases. So in reality, and then I would also add too, without being too disparaging, like not everybody's figured out how to succeed in the auction, but those folks represent tremendous demand. And so if you want to express that demand into your mobile application for some segment of your user population, you're probably going to have to use a different tool. And so up until, honestly, this past year, a lot of that stuff was just too complicated to make the juice worth the squeeze. And so what we saw in the spring was these AI tools are going to come along and make it 10x easier to do all that stuff. And then so actually making a more complicated setup, if the workflow is lower and the friction is lower, actually unlocks a lot of business opportunity. And, we've been we've been inundated with publishers who have told us like, this is exactly what we want to do, or we're building something like this internally and would rather use you guys, actually.
That's super interesting. So, for decades, web and desktop was the kind of the big brother, and app was kind of this new thing that was really kind of weird and did not follow a lot of the examples from web and desktop and create new things, and often bad things. But it feels as though standing here today, the app business is more attractive than the web and desktop business, primarily based on the success of AppLovin in creating a performance model that scales. Do you think, I know you probably don't want to talk about AppLovin because you had a long involvement with them, but do you think there are lessons that can translate back to web and desktop in terms of creating performance, closed loop systems, using better technology, et cetera?
It's a great question. I mean, I don't profess to be an expert at desktop at all. So I have no idea what desktop should do, quite frankly. But I will say in regards to AppLovin, I haven't been involved over there, in quite a long time. But obviously we sold Max to them for a reason. We are huge fans of the AppLovin business, and they have done an incredible job of building just a juggernaut in the space, and it's something to behold. And Adam's amazing at this stuff, so we're huge fans, obviously. And the thing I would point out about mobile is that it's always been had the capability, I think, to be a more expressive platform, to have more capabilities because you're running on the device. It's obviously where users spend the substantial majority of their time. It didn't have the intent always. And so the unlock, I think that, I would give Adam and his team credit for doing is basically unlocking this notion of discovery and applying that not just in like a Facebook, Instagram context where you have a tremendous amount of data, but in a relatively less data rich environment to make that discovery actually work. So, narrative certainly follows price. And like now the mobile folks are ascendant because I think, obviously you see the hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap and enterprise value that just that one singular company has created. And so now, obviously I think we are getting a lot of calls from people who aren't in mobile, who are maybe in more traditional ad tech desktop situations where they're like, hey, can you help us figure this out?
I love the idea of throwing out my ad server and using Claude to traffic my ads. That sounds kind of awesome.
Yeah, and that's I mean, we kind of got a little bit lucky because Claude Code and these tools came out in the summer, just as we were making what we were making. We had already made that bet, so it was that paid off nicely in that case. But I mean, you're not alone. Like all the publishers who are adopting our platform are extremely excited with what they can do with the extremely limited resources that they currently have.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome. So Adam is also on our white whale list, so if Adam's listening, we want you on the pod.
Can you text him for us, Jim?
I can't make any promises.
So Jim, you're one of the you're a person who has a lot of legends about him. You're not you're not always at all the industry events. You just kind of quietly do your stuff, make gazillions of dollars, success after success. So we're going to do a little lightning round where I'm going to go through some of the legends of Jim Payne, and you're just going to like, yes, no, prefer not to answer. Or you could also give some color if you'd like. So, let's just ask some Jim Payne legend questions.
Happy to. I mean, I'm honored that there's even a list of legends.
Yeah.
You're right. I do kind of do my thing, but I do pop up in South of France from time to time. I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's been a lot of successful people in ad tech, but you got to be pretty high on the list. So the one that came from this podcast, I think it was Kevin Weatherman we had on maybe 6 months ago, or was it Kevin? It might have been the Mike Driscoll episode. I can't remember. Why would we have Kevin Weatherman on the pod? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, love Kevin. He listens.
I don't want to say anything negative about Kevin. I love Kevin. He's a loyal listener. We love you, Kevin.
There was an incident where, just to put it in context, you were talking about how your horse was going to be running the Preakness, and that we were in New York at the time. The Preakness is in Baltimore, and you casually talked about how you were going to fly a helicopter to go see your horse. True or false?
Yeah, that is true. We were going to do that. So that's a great story that I'm happy to tell. So one of we didn't actually end up doing the helicopter because of the weather.
Yes, the horse had to run despite the weather, but the helicopter couldn't fly.
Yeah, right. The horse is running in a lot of weather. You wouldn't want to be flying helicopters.
Sure.
So I got involved in an awesome company called Commonwealth as an investor. They're basically a horse racing syndicate platform. And I got to know the founders really well. And this guy, Chase, runs it now. He called me and he's like, you've got to go big on this horse called Mage that we just bought, along with some other people. And, you can syndicate it through the platform. And, we want you to be one of the bigger investors here. And I looked at it and I was like, well, Chase telling me to get involved in a horse. Like, I probably should listen to him. Did that. And so ended up as part of the syndicate that was part owner of Mage, and Mage was just kind of a star horse and won the Kentucky Derby. A friend of mine and I went to the Kentucky Derby along with the rest of the Commonwealth team. So we're in the winner's circle at the end. And, as when your horse wins the Kentucky Derby as a somewhat long show, it's a 17-1 shot. It's kind of a mind blowing experience that security comes in, escorts you to the grounds. You get a mint julep in a silver cup, custom made from the. Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. And then, you're sitting there and you're like, I'm on NBC. And so I'm getting all these texts like, why are you in the winner's circle of the Kentucky Derby? Like, all this sort of stuff. And so we just got, absolutely, thrilled with the sport. And then obviously Mage, we felt like he could probably win the Triple Crown. And so Preakness is the next step of that. And I think we were at Luma, we were at DMS, I think.
Yeah, man.
And, I was talking casually to Mike and I said, basically in order for me to do all the things I need to do in New York and then get to the Preakness in time to see Mage, I got to probably take a chopper. So,
yeah, Amtrak won't do. No Amtrak.
Yeah,
take the chopper.
Ended up doing Amtrak and it was tough. But because it was raining.
This is what happens when you exit as a founder. So those listening, we have goals. Put it on your mood board. The horse chopper. All right. Next on the list. Is it true that you turned down a Google PM job to start MoPub?
Well, I had worked at Google PM before.
Okay. So you left Google to start MoPub?
No, I actually left Google and then joined AdMob. And I was at AdMob for maybe 2 months. And partially, I thought that AdMob was going to be, so I was working on it inside of Google. I was working on a thing called hosted mobile search, which is like a text-based WAP search product. Yeah. And
for the younger kids, it's not the WAP you're thinking. It's the old phone protocol.
See, I don't even know what that is, man. I don't even know what that means.
I'm in touch with the youth.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're a media figure. You
Google it later.
But I don't know if I should. I know enough to not do that. So anyway, what was I going to say?
WAP product
I was
manager.
working on hosted. Right, I was working on hosted mobile search, and we like BlackBerry was the strategy at Google at the time, and I absolutely loved Google. Loved it. It was like such a good experience for me. Taught me everything I know about how to be a CEO and ship product and all that kind of stuff. It was just absolutely amazing. But we were sitting there in the iPhone moment, and I'm like, and I partially wanted to get out of my Google experience the readiness and the network and the skill set to start a company. And I actually had intended to stay at Google a lot longer, but I was like, this is kind of the moment. So I ended up going to AdMob, and I was like, I'm going to learn as much as I can about mobile advertising. And, it's a Sequoia-backed company, and, it'll be a good network building thing. And then I'll eventually go make the next company, and that'll be my plan. So that's basically what it was. And it just ended up being like speed run, because within 2 months, AdMob was bought by Google. And in fact, one of the guys who started MoPub with me, Nafis Jamal, I met him at AdMob, and he joined on the day that the acquisition was announced.
Not a lot of time to vest.
That was his first day. And so, we hung around to see kind of how things would play out with the FTC and stuff like that. But we gained enough conviction during that time that programmatic advertising was exactly what mobile advertising needed. That was basically the core idea for MoPub.
Okay, more on MoPub. I know the answer to this question. Is it true you gave me equity as an advisor to do absolutely nothing for MoPub?
Yeah, that's a softball, because that's true. But you actually
that is true.
We had some advisors who did a lot, some advisors we just wanted to be involved, and I feel like that was good karma, and hopefully you used that money productively, because it actually was probably a lot.
It was a shit ton. I've advised and invested in a lot of companies.
On the cap table. Yeah.
Yeah, I have on the cap table. I have a MoPub legend. I heard that you loaned employees money to exercise their options early to benefit from the favorable tax treatment, which upon exit created, I think, dozens of millionaires. Is this true?
Yeah, that's right. There was a Business Insider article that Allison Chantel did on that, and that got me in a bit of a hot water at Twitter. They didn't love that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
we could edit it out if you want.
No, you can keep it. Twitter doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, Twitter's dead.
Elon runs it. Yeah,
sure.
I'm sure Elon would be like, "I'm glad you did that," if he's listening.
All right, next. I really don't know the answer to this one, but someone told me this. So there's a book, a very famous book called Bringing Down the House, about MIT students who beat the casino. Are you in that book?
No, that was before my time. That was before my time.
That's false.
Yeah, that is a false one. But we drew some inspiration from that when I was an intern at Microsoft. We did a lot of card counting, actually, because there's nothing else to do in Redmond, Washington.
Sure.
Great legend.
It's a legend. Okay, we debunked it. Okay, the last question. If I was an angel investor in MoPub versus an angel investor in Max, which would have given me a greater return, given that Max was bought by AppLovin for stock?
Well, it depends on if you held the APP stock. Some people did, and they're doing extremely well. But it was an extremely high vol ride, and so not everybody stuck with it. But basically, angel investor in Max, you would have gotten your money back in the cash portion of the deal, and then had the same size position ultimately in AppLovin at a $2 billion valuation is what it was at the time.
Whoa! And Max was a pretty small company when you exited.
Max was a we could do a whole podcast on sort of how that all came together, because it was pretty much, I personally self-funded it. It was at a time where, I don't know if a period existed, but no one wanted to do ad tech investing at that time. I mean, I pitched to everybody, and as my view was, actually, it's interesting because this view worked at the time and then ended up not really being able to work. It was like a very much ID based approach to programmatic. And also, interestingly enough, like it was Facebook and others who were trying to bid directly on IDFAs and spearfish. And so our platform is designed to enable that in a way that MoPub didn't do. And so I self-financed it and was the executive chairman eventually, and Dan ran it as the CEO. And ultimately we saw that what Adam was doing with AppLovin and what we were trying to do were actually very complementary, and the industrial logic made so much sense. And I also was like, I don't know how we're going to raise the money that it's going to take to actually do this in this particular environment. So it made sense to team up with him, and that worked out really well.
Yeah, AppLovin was $2 billion when you sold it.
Yeah, we did that deal at the same time that KKR got involved, and so that's a public number.
Yeah. Right, it's $240 billion today.
That is correct. So
120x on your investment,
on your angel investment, which you don't get those too often. The best one I heard is a buddy of mine, Brian Norgard, 1,000x on Polymarket. I was like, that's pretty good. He got it at 9 million, and they just traded 9 billion. I was like, that's legendary stuff.
It's quite a good bet, literally. All right, Jim, this was awesome. If listeners have additional Jim Payne legends, put them in the comments or hit them on Twitter. We're going to take a break. We have a lot of news. We have this exciting acquisition, Pinterest tvScientific, to talk about.
I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. If you want to do volume 2, I feel like we're just scratching the surface. I'd love to do it.
Well, we'll definitely do volume 2 when CloudX has its multi-billion-dollar exit.
Right, exactly. The way AI works, it'll be like 3 months from now.
Yeah, it'll be 3 months from now. You should change it. Is it CloudX.ai or is it just CloudX? Is there
we have the .ai. Yeah.
You got to have the .ai. That increase your valuation already.
That's right. That's right. When we go, we're going to do GA in January, and that'll be part of that. So that's my commitment to you.
All right, we'll follow up when it happens. All right, let's take the break.
All right, we're back with the refresh. We have a lot of news to get into this week. Wait a minute. You guys feel that? It's like
feel what?
It's raining. Is it raining by you, Jim? Wait, no, that's not rain. That's
not Santa Monica.
That's tears. The tears of the ad tech haters, the people who say you cannot build awesome businesses and drive great strategic outcomes in ad tech. They're having a bad day.
Why are they having a bad day, Eric?
So, Pinterest, publicly traded company, well known for their social network, social footprint, acquired the CTV performance startup that my fund is an investor in, called tvScientific. Pinterest is a $16 billion company, 600 MAUs. It's a good business. It's a big business, and it is largely, I think, a mobile product. So interestingly, they are now a CTV company. And on the surface, some people were thinking this was a head scratcher, but if you actually understand where CTV is going, where this whole performance CTV market is going, and it makes a bunch of sense. For performance CTV, you need signals, you need data, and ideally you need search data or intent data. Pinterest has that in spades, and Pinterest needing to unlock another area of growth, get into CTV makes a ton of sense. So I got a lot to say about this, but I'll stop there. Obviously, we've been an investor since day one, and we're thrilled with the outcome and thrilled for Jason. What do you think about this whole thing, Ari?
Yeah, congrats on the investment. It's a space we've talked about on this show many times. I'm involved with Vibe, where I was on the board for a while, and I'm very excited about performance TV in general. I think, though, and I wrote this in my little Twitter thread, like the biggest challenge for performance TV is customer acquisition, and these many millions of small advertisers is really the sweet spot here, or maybe it's the 10,000 medium-sized advertisers. And you see that in the way Mountain talks about its business, about, the many, many accounts. And so the big tech platforms have those, Facebook, Google, they have millions and millions of customers. And it is inevitable that it's a race, that the startups try to grow as fast as possible. The big companies either build or buy. And this is, I think, the first shoe to drop.
Shoe to drop in a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah, for sure. for sure. Pinterest has their version of like Advantage Plus and PMax. So I think what's interesting here is all of a sudden you start adding CTV to the mix, irrespective of how many customers they have. I don't think they break that out. I don't think they have the millions of SMBs that the others do. Like this unlocks, just additional ad spend if they play it right. So it makes a bunch of sense.
Jim, I have a question for you. Do you know, is Pinterest do a lot of audience extension, or is it all O&O?
Not as far as I know, and but I think that's an interesting rich vein for them to potentially pursue.
Yeah, because their audience is pretty flat, I think. I don't think they're growing audience that fast.
Back in the Max days, we talked to them to do something like this, but that never really got to be a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a $4 billion business. So it's a substantial business. And if they're not growing, they need to just like unlock more places for them to put more ads.
Yeah, and we've said this before, but it's really kind of remarkable how absent the big tech companies are in CTV and streaming. I mean, Meta just isn't there. They're just not a participant. Google is so focused on YouTube, they've let the rest kind of slide. X isn't there. And TikTok's not there. I mean, obviously people will watch TikTok on their big screen TV sometimes, but that's different from, being part of the rest of the world. So I think there's a lot of blank space here.
Yeah. This is not the predictions episode, but I'd love to get both of your guys' take. Do we see Meta, Google, TikTok, Snap start to, move into CTV, or do you think they just kind of keep playing it as they have and ignore what is a massive market?
I think Meta's in TV in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think it makes obvious sense for them to do it. And so I would expect them to. I mean, if you look at what they're doing with us and third party, I think it's just a good signal that they're trying to go outside and, make the investments that they're making in ad recommendation engines and AI overall, just drive that ROI.
Do you think, Jim, that's because they feel like they've moved beyond IDs and to their AI-based system? Like if it was all IDFAs and IDFAs get wiped out, then offsite isn't as attractive. But now they have this magical AI engine.
I do think that's driving it, yeah. And so obviously we're gonna work really hard to make them successful in mobile advertising next year too.
Awesome. Let's stay on the TV front, on the CTV front. So I don't know how much we want to talk about who is going to ultimately end up owning Warner Brothers. Since we last recorded last week, Netflix announced the acquisition or intends to acquire Warner Brothers. The Ellisons via Paramount, they put in a hostile bid. I don't even know where things are today and ultimately where it goes. But the question is like, what does this mean under maybe those two scenarios for the advertising market? So first, any updates on this like back and forth that you've tracked, Ari?
Only what everybody else is tracking, that Paramount is trying to be hostile, and Paramount's also valuing the cable spinouts, whereas Netflix is not. I think the big story here is consolidation. Either party buys them is one less channel, one less ways consumer interact. And I don't think it'll be the end. I think there's going to be increasing consolidation in traditional media. Obviously, it's been in decline for a long time, but the regulatory view of being more permissive and just the declining values of some of these assets will force consolidation.
Yeah, that makes sense. What does this mean for ad tech? What does this mean for advertising? What does this mean for ad tech?
Well, I wrote this in my Twitter thread that you could kind of draw a line between the tvScientific deal and this deal in that the independent ad tech, meaning like tvScientific, are dependent to some extent on inventory they don't own. And if the inventory gets consolidated, it becomes harder to access that inventory. The same way you can't access the walled garden in Amazon. What happens if Netflix now owns Warner Brothers and they make that a walled garden, and so on and so forth? They haven't to date, but they might in the future. So consolidation is bad for independent ad tech is kind of the short answer. It may be good for advertising, though.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Jim, you tracking this one?
Well, I do spend a lot of time in LA, but I don't have any alpha for you that I can share, unfortunately.
You're preparing your own bid.
That's right. I got my consortium working on it right now.
From what I've heard, LA is up in arms over this, with the potential effects this might have on the movie industry, huh?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because I do spend a little bit of time in that world. And, there's still something in the air here about the creative spark that no matter how much, Netflix distribution they get, it still comes from, some really special product that gets conceived of in some, somewhere here in LA and goes into that machine. So I do think it's going to be, while yes, I think the economics obviously go elsewhere. Like ultimately, you can't really replace that.
Yep, makes sense. All right, let's move off of CTV. We'll get into DSP. Bunch of acronyms. So there was a report in Digiday and picked up by others that the trade desk, seemingly for the first time, is getting pretty aggressive on signing deals for Q4. I'll pull a quote out that you put in the docket here, Ari. One indie buyer said TTD offered 1% to 2% discounts on ad tech fees for individual clients if the agency committed to spending $500K or more in Q4 than originally budgeted. Another buyer said they were offered post-auction discounts if they spent at least $750K in Q4. So is this more evidence of, pressure in the DSP market via Amazon, which has been one of the stories of the year, or something else?
No, I think it's definitely that story. Amazon competing on price. There was a story that Yahoo DSP is competing on price. Google has always been, DV360 has been the low price competitor in the DSP market. And Trade Desk's message to the street has been just not to pay attention to that. It's not happening. And it's obviously happening. So this is a little gossipy and sort of like it's hot tea. But it'll be very interesting to see the earnings report in when the quarter's over to see if maybe there's a shortfall or maybe they're seeing some movement in their model.
Yeah. Is it hot tea though? Because what would you want? Like, let's say you're a TTD shareholder. What would you want TTD to do if indeed there was evidence of pressure in the market? Would you want them to just put their heads in the sand? Or get out there and compete, get aggressive and start to drive activity? I think this is good.
I'm going to offer you a 3-word rebuttal. Post-auction discounts was in that quote that you gave. So they're post-auction discounts means we're not going to change your rate card. You're going to stay with what you pay us, which might be off market, might be a little too high, but we're going to sweeten it. So on the first week of January, we're going to, wire your agency, $10,000, $20,000 to keep you happy. And it'll be up to you, Mr. Agency, if you want to share that with your end client or put it towards the Christmas party.
Mm-hmm. Again, just seems like they're in the market competing. I'm not mad at it. But we'll see. Again, to your point, we'll see what Q4 looks like. One other thing on the I guess CTV DSP front. If you guys caught this, PMG, the indie agency owned by Momentum, they've got this marketplace called Alley, which is pretty cool, and they apparently have rolled out a meta CTV DSP functionality in it, so their clients can access basically all the inventory that is now disparately available, in individual DSPs, namely YouTube via DV360. Amazon via Amazon in a single buying interface. So I think this is pretty good.
Yeah, I interviewed an executive from PMG at Cannes about this. They had just released Alley. It's it's sort of a dashboarding integration tool. Makes it easy for it's really nice looking and stuff. It's, the devil's in the details here, which I don't think we have all the details as to how much they're going really direct versus just, automating the use of the APIs from the DSPs. I think the trend here is agencies actually building parts of the stack to make their operations more smooth, customers stickier, generally reduce costs, and that seems like a really positive thing for any agency to do.
Yeah, agreed. And coming from an indie, not a holdco, probably something there as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about commerce media, retail media, the launch of new things. So 2 things this week. The first was, so there's some news that Shopify rolled out a new ad network. Mm-hmm. Which it is and it isn't. It's a cross merchant product network. So
Yeah.
basically, it will insert an item from another merchant into a storefront, kind of like how you get with the third-party sellers on Walmart, and, makes them for sale. So effectively, it's kind of like a RMN disguised as merchandising, not necessarily ads. But I think this is interesting because it keeps shoppers in a store, right? They don't navigate elsewhere if it's a product that fulfills it. And it creates a little bit of a performance loop, right? Like, you will earn ad credits according to the program that you can then push into further promotion by you as a seller on Shopify. So not mad at it. I think it's a pretty cool idea.
Not mad at it. There've been a bunch of independent apps in the Shopify ecosystem that did this already, like product recommendation apps, effectively cross retailer. Makes total sense, no brainer. I think my take here is that Shopify is under investing in this opportunity. They had some announcement, I think a year or more ago, that they're building an ad division, and then nothing really came of that. And to my knowledge, they're not very active in advertising right now. And they have so much data. They don't just have data and intent and technology and all that stuff. They also have merchants who are too small to do it themselves, who are reliant on them for new customer acquisition. And that's just such a sweet spot. They should be much more active, building the AppLovin of web-based commerce or whatever. Not even web-based commerce. It seems like a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not the prediction episode, but I would imagine in 2026 they have to get aggressive. Is there a head of advertising at Shopify? Maybe they start there. I don't know if there is one.
I don't know. Ari at aripaparo.com.
What I'd say, these things take a long time. They should have been doing this many years ago. So I don't know if it's 26 prediction, but it seems like to me a massive opportunity. And again, like narrative, price drives narrative, right? So I think investors or anybody on a board of a company like that has to look at what Adam's been able to do and say, we need to go after this because it can really be supportive of creating a tremendous amount of market cap for us.
Absolutely. One other, Uber. So Uber continues to do well. I think they're at, 1.5 billion in terms of their advertising business. They launched this thing called Uber Insights. So it's working with LiveRamp. Basically, you can, as an advertiser, securely connect your data with Uber's data, and then find out interesting things about your audiences based on where they eat via Uber Eats, where they travel via the Uber app. I don't know if this is a paid product or a way for them to drive more spend, but this is a pretty cool use case.
Yeah, it reminds me of a little bit. This is totally off color, but the Michigan coach, how he just got fired for having an extramarital affair.
How does this remind you of the Michigan coach?
Well, do you know how he got caught?
No, I haven't been tracking this one. Yeah,
he DoorDashed Plan B to his office. Because what Plan B is, or you could Google it. And the DoorDash guy ratted him out.
Really?
Yeah. So, his
data was not securely connected.
You got to put him in a clean room. You got to put the delivery guy in a clean room. That's the lesson
here. Trusted execution environment.
Trusted execution environment.
Exactly. We just brought it home. You need trusted execution environments, people.
I didn't know where that story was going. I walked myself into a corner and you guys saved me. Thank you.
Amazing. And I think that's a great place to end it. We got a bunch of other news. We'll put it in the newsletter. This has been an awesome week and an awesome episode. Thank you, Jim.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks everyone for listening.
Yep. See you guys soon.